So good night, everyone. Welcome to the third installment of the Women Empowered in Business series. I am Leandra Foster. I'll be your host for the evening. I'm very excited to engage in this conversation tonight with our audience and our guest panelists on this month's theme, Development, Growth, and Sustainability. This event is proudly sponsored by St. Lucia Development Bank and Invest St. Lucia. If you are new to this virtual platform, welcome. Women Empowered in Business, or as we call it, the web series, is a monthly virtual discussion powered by Boost St. Lucia. What Boost St. Lucia is, it's a virtual incubator and accelerator program. And in essence, the program was created to unite entrepreneurs who seek a community of like-minded business persons, strategic partners, and startups who are simply trying to navigate this entrepreneurial landscape. The program encourages building connections, supporting creative and transformative ideas, measuring key milestones, and supporting strategic goals. To learn more about Boost St. Lucia, visit www.booststlucia.com. In recent years, the voices of many women have fortunately been amplified on issues surrounding gender disparity, whether it's socially, economically, or culturally. As an extension of Boost St. Lucia, the web series was created to shed a spotlight on successful women in business in the Caribbean who have overcome adversities and are willing to tell their stories while sharing sage advice to the audience on how they traverse the entrepreneurial ecosystem. While we continue to take note of the unfortunate effects of this pandemic, many businesses have been forced to rethink their business development strategies. Some have been pushed to expand and adapt to this new normal, while others fight to maintain and sustain their success. Tonight, we uncover all truths. If you are a budding entrepreneur, pull out a pen and start taking notes. All right, so without further ado, I would like to introduce my tonight's panelists. I will just say their names and just give a little wave when I say your name. So we have Karishma Chugani of PANACHE Island Wear.
Hello.
We also have Jada Francis of XONA Wines.
Hi, good night.
And we have Mandisa Morrison of Shoe Rehab. Hi, Mandisa.
My wave.
Hi.
All right. So I'm going to give a very brief bio or a little background on each of our panelists tonight. We have Karishma Chugani of PANACHE Island Wear. Karishma is a luxury property, sales and business development specialist, an entrepreneur, and founder of PANACHE Island Wear. Over the span of her career, Karishma has led the sale of millions of dollars in real estate and luxury vacation ownership. She is also a first-generation Barbadian-born Indian who fuses her family heritage with her passion for her island roots into inspired designs for her fashion line. She's a self-taught designer and has grown her brand organically to serve clients all over the world. She has over a decade of business experience, having started out selling Indian-inspired jewelry and accessories in her parents' store at the tender age of 16. She graduated with honors with a degree in business management from the University of the West Indies. Everybody, Karishma Chugani.
Thank you.
Jada Francis of XONA Wines. Jada Francis is a former student of the Castries Comprehensive Secondary School, where she held a plethora of leadership roles and attained many titles, including 2015 Sportswoman of the Year, the valedictorian of her graduating class of 2016 as well. Jada completed her A-levels in law, economics, and communication studies at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College and is now in pursuit of her bachelor's degree in international development at Humber College in Toronto, with hopes of one day serving as an ambassador to her island home, St. Lucia. Eager to represent her country in any capacity, she has worked and continues to work with various groups and initiatives to aid youth development and empowerment. Jada currently holds a seat as the External Affairs Ambassador on the newly founded youth organization in St. Lucia, Silk, I hope I'm saying it right, and formally assumed the position of co-chairman of youth development on the OCS Nationals Council in Canada. Everybody, Jada Francis of XONA Wines. Mandisa, last but not least, of Shoe Rehab, entrepreneur, marketer, project manager. Mandisa emerges from a background of 10 years in the field of marketing and has experience in executing projects across the region. In 2013, Mandisa founded her first mainstream business, Shoe Rehab, a modern-day shoe restoration and enhancement company, and shortly after branched out her second business venture, the Foot Spa, in 2016. Throughout her entrepreneurial journey, Mandisa was granted the opportunity to represent St. Lucia at the Caribbean Youth Entrepreneurship Summit in Barbados. She was also awarded Youth Entrepreneur of the Year at the 2016 St. Lucia Business Awards. Ms. Morrison is passionate about encouraging entrepreneurs like herself and has acted as an advisor on multiple startup committees. She also currently sits on the board of directors for the Youth Enterprise Equity Fund, a subsidiary of St. Lucia Development Bank. Okay, so that is Mandisa, everybody. Tonight's agenda will consist of a 25-minute panel discussion. Then it will be followed by a 10-minute question and answer session with our audience. We have 5 questions for you. And they will all be on the theme development, growth, and sustainability. All right. So our first question is that each of our panelists has some experience, whether academic or professional, in business development. Before an idea takes off, there must be a tactical execution plan. Speak to the importance of development, strategizing, when entering the business space, whether it is financial, marketing, or research. All right, I'm Jada, because you are fairly new to the business. I do want to hear how XONA started off. So I would love for you to take this question off, and then we'll go into our other panelists. So Jada, take it away.
Okay, no problem. So thanks again. So essentially, business development to me essentially means how exactly you plan to achieve your goals, right? So for me with XONA, I had to go through a step-by-step process where, it started from me going to dinners and stuff was always a family tradition. So we would always read the back of bottles, we'll always try new wines and whatnot. And that has just been a part of my family for a number of years. As I got older, especially when I started drinking more wine, going out with my friends, I realized that among my peers, as well as just the St. Lucian population, the majority, I should say, but not everybody, it's not a very wine-conscious place. So I realized there was a market now for wines due to the shift in the type of events we started having. I realized we had a lot of all-inclusive events coming up, a lot more brunch events coming up. However, St. Lucia or the Caribbean is predominantly known for, our rums, our spirits, our beers. And I'm like, whenever you leave, especially me doing international development, it has always been that whenever you leave, you should bring something back with you. If you want to develop your countries, yes, we leave to get further education. However, you should be able to come back and apply it here. So my thing has always been, okay, what can I take from outside and bring it back here? And I said, okay, what doesn't St. Lucia have? Or at least what can't we do naturally that we can still make ours? And I was like, okay, I love wine, but we don't have the climate to grow the grapes to get good quality wine. However, if I can find a winery here or vineyards that I could sit down, tailor flavors with, play around and experiment with some of our Caribbean stuff, our fruits and flavors and whatnot, maybe then we could still have our own wine from the Caribbean and just kind of, blow that whole stereotype out of the window. So that's exactly what I did. I ended up going to Argentina, Chile, back to Canada, just searching for wineries that I thought could work well with me. And I did end up finding one in Canada, and we were able to sit down. I was talking about pineapple, mango, passion fruit, all kind of flavors that we could possibly add to our wines. On top of that, now it came to how am I going to sell it? How am I going to market it? And I'm I was like, I want something that's classy but tropical. You want something that's easy on the taste buds because it's not necessarily a wine conscious country. So how do we do it that it's not something that cuts your throat too much? Or all Lucians, most Lucians will say, oh, I like sweet wine, but they don't necessarily know what types of sweet wine. So it's like you have to give something that is adaptable and easily digestible based on the market. So all of that we had to understand. And yeah, in terms of how are you going to generate capital, who's going to support me, where am I going to get my finances from, my investments from. So yeah, business development to me has been, what are my goals? How am I going to achieve them? And what am I going to do after I've achieved them? What's next? And yeah.
Thank you so much for that response. I appreciate you explain to us the intention to fruition of your business. Karishma, will you like to tag on that question?
Yeah, definitely. I think everything she said is really important with devising a business strategy. When you're entering a brand new market, you need to be able to know, you need to know your market. You need to understand what makes people tick, what they like to receive. Yeah, so similar to what was just said, my strategy was very heavy on my supply chains. So it was very heavily based on how am I going to take this goal of mine, this idea that I have of marrying my, my heritage, my Indian heritage, and the culture of my birthplace being Barbados, and create something that is unique, that people are still going to respond to, and beyond responding to it, that they're going to really love and have a passion for. And so, in Barbados, where we have a very sexy swim culture, and in India, and in an Indian upbringing, you have a very elegant, regal, but relatively conservative dress attire. So the goal ultimately was to fuse the two. And in order to fuse the two, you need authentic Indian wear to attach to the fabrics to create the designs that were in my mind. So yeah, it took a lot of research and a lot of traveling. I actually work in an office in real estate. So I would work from Monday to Friday, and then every Friday evening I would fly out to Trinidad, because Trinidad has a very heavy Indian population. So I would fly to Trinidad and I would work there from Friday night straight until Monday morning, catch the first flight back to be back into the office. And that was a little rough. I mean, I have to admit, I did that for a couple of months until I was actually able to launch, and that was challenging. But that supply chain, once I was able to build it, it really helped propel my business to the stage I needed it to be at.
Thank you, Karishma. Mandisa, you've had a more seasoned tenure in the business. I do want to know what your development plan was like, and speak a little more to strategizing.
Okay, so good night, everyone. Yes, it's, well, the business is now in our 7th year. There have been many up and downs, but I think we speak about having a plan, but I think it really is the basis of everything that you do. Initially, I did a lot of research, like the other young ladies said. I mean, I grew up knowing the culture of fixing your shoes, and technically, just generally, I'm somebody that I tend to love my stuff. If it's mine, I want to have it for the rest of my life. So I think that was the mindset behind it all. What really propelled me into starting it was that I recognized that there was an area that was not being met with this service in the mall, in the north, I should say. It was always, I worked in the north, and it was a little bit of an inconvenience for me to go all the way down to Castries by a certain time, and parking and all of that. So recognizing that there was a problem, I sought to come up with a solution, which was to start the business. And it's definitely, it's been going good, ups and downs, as with anything else. But I think when it comes to strategizing, one area that is often overlooked is the me part of the business, which is critical. Sometimes I think people go into things just because, you know, it's something to do, or maybe for bragging rights, or, you know, not looking at the big picture. But when you sit down and you come up with your plan or your idea, you put it down on paper, you're really trying to see how viable your idea is. It can be nice, it can be a brilliant idea, but it could be something that may not necessarily be something that you could live on. Or it may be something that is more laborious to you. It takes so much of your time that your reward is, you know, little to nothing, and you lose your momentum halfway through, you get frustrated and that stuff. So I think when strategizing, a big part of what you need to do is recognize, okay, when I start this business, what is it supposed to do for me? What are some of the benchmarks that I would like 3 years from now? If I'm still in business, what is it that I would like to achieve for myself? You know, so I think that's a big part of your plan.
Yeah, and I appreciate you ending the question with that, because it speaks to how developing your plan from the beginning, not just it being an idea and you just going off of an idea and you start your business immediately. You set out a plan, you set out your goals, and that will help with your growth. Because if you don't have a proper plan set, it's like you're going nowhere almost. So that brings us into our next question. Yeah, it keeps you on track. So it definitely brings us to our next question, which is that how has your business development plan assisted you in reaping the benefits of a successful business, and how has your business grown since inception, and what are other opportunities of growth and expansion that you wish for your business? So I think for growth, I would love if Karishma could start on that one.
Yeah.
Yes. Would you like me to repeat the question?
I got the question. I'm happy to take the lead on that.
Yeah.
For me with Panache, and of course Panache has only been live since, you know, early summer of 2019. But of course I was sitting on an idea, and I had started working on a plan from 2 years before that. My ultimate goal was for Panache to become a name that everybody knew, and that the second you hear, you know all the big brands. So you hear Louis Vuitton, you think status. You know, you hear, I don't know, Fossil, you think a good brand of a watch. So I wanted that when you hear Panache Island wear, you think of a really comfortable piece of fabric, something that flows really well, and the only thing you want to grab when you're on the way to the beach, or when you're on the way out to lounge, you know, or if you're packing for a vacation or going to a resort. How do you become that kind of a household name that everybody knows and everybody aspires to wanting to have? So before I even had a physical product, I started an Instagram page, because I realized with my target market, everyone in my target market was very heavily based on Instagram. Everyone's on Instagram. Work, play, everything, every emotion goes out to Instagram. So I just held a page and I just started posting things on it, things with food and things with fashion, just to see what people were responding to. And that helped me to understand how to carve my way into that market. Now, when I actually launched Panache, it was incredibly overwhelming, because I knew that I wanted to have really nice images. So you will never see a picture from Panache of something being strung on a mannequin. It's always going to be on an actual person, because you relate to that better. There is an emotional side to making a purchase. There's a very level-headed, you know, logical side to it, but there's also an emotional side. And when you see a person wearing something, it almost feels like you can relate to it better, right? So that's basically how it really got going for me, heavily on Instagram. And yeah, people responded to it. I mean, it reached a stage where the second I would post something, instantly people were messaging with orders. And so what ended up happening was that I was selling faster than I could produce. And so I think, you know, that goes to speak to how well your plan can work for you, and how much you really need to study your back-end supply and managing your growth. Because because you have an idea and then you grow faster than you even deemed possible, and then you're kind of a fish out of water. But with regard to growing even further than that, my goal was always to start in Barbados, grow regionally, and I was making steps towards it. I then set up a location 6 months after my launch in the Kenya Linton Boutique in Jamaica. And the plan was then to grow regionally and then eventually get out internationally. But when COVID hit last year and everything completely, the world rotated off of its axis, what ended up happening was that, forget regional, internationally now, people wanted the products that I was marketing, because I wasn't marketing swim covers anymore, because people don't socialize, they're not going to the beach. And we ended up going into masks. And, that, truth be told, was completely organic. And I think that's a very important part of growth, that you have a plan and, you stick to it as best as you can. Yes, but things happen and you have to keep your eyes peeled for opportunity, because if you are, and you can somehow get into that market and dominate it, then obviously you're steps ahead because you're ahead of the competition. And when the pandemic hit last year and we started doing masks, it wasn't even for sale. It was because I was then the curator of the Global Shapers, which is an initiative of the World Economic Forum. And somebody else who sat on that with me runs the Barbados homeless shelter. And I messaged him and said, are you okay? What's happening? And he said, look, it's looking like masks are going to be a thing that we're going to need. And we have 75 homeless and we need the masks. And I don't know how to get them. So, my mom, my dad, my sister, everyone put hands together and we just started stitching masks. We had no idea what we were doing. And I did a couple for PANACHE, put it on the page, and fast forward to not even 2 weeks later, we were getting orders in the hundreds for corporations. So growth is an important stage in business, and you really do have to keep your eyes open for opportunity, because when it comes knocking, you got to be ready to jump.
I like the fact that you speak about it working intentionally and growth happening organically, because sometimes really that's just how it happens. Sometimes your business takes off further than you thought it would. So somebody like Jada, I want to know what your thoughts are on your business plan. Was it well devised that you're now reaping the benefits of your plan, and speak to the expansion and the growth that you wish for your business, because I definitely see it growing already. So I want to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So similar to Karishma, I wanted XONA to be essentially like a household name, So even the name XONA, meaning it stemmed from the Amazona versicolor, like our national bird, and it's like the bird is on the logo, everything. And to me, I was just like, okay, so I have XONA, and then how am I gonna sell it? I don't want to sell it like any regular wine on the shelf. It has to come off as something that is more of a lifestyle, because what am I selling? I'm selling elevated Caribbean lifestyle. I'm trying to give you classy but tropical. I'm trying to, you understand? And I think similar to Karishma, it's like the pandemic kind of forced me to shake up, because the plan was to launch 2020 last year, and I wanted to launch Independence Day, at least a social media launch, which I did. However, Corona happened, or COVID happened, March, smack in the beginning of March, and right there, it's like my plan was to tease and tease and tease, but then really XONA by the summer. But by the time all of this happened, that pushed me back to like December. In fact, it pushed me back to end of summer, and then end of summer till December, and then end of December to end up being like just January. And it was, I'm like, okay, I wanted to tease it, but I didn't want to tease it this much. At this point, I think it's kind of overdoing it. But I think it still worked, because then it became this thing. I put so much energy into creating this lifestyle around it that it got to a point where everybody was like, okay, it seems like this is some exclusive thing, and now I have to have it. So I think it worked out to my benefit, where I thought I kind of stretched it on too long, even if it wasn't necessarily my fault. However, I still think it worked out well in that way. And I think even in terms of growth, I mean, in fact, I'm not going to go into the challenges now, because I think I'll leave that for later. But I think COVID kind of forced everybody to switch your strategy everything went online, you immediately had to figure out, okay, I'm going to need a website. I'm going to have to up my content on social media because now I can't do any in-person sales. There's no way I can give anybody a physical product right now, especially because even working with my suppliers now, all of that went up in the air because now I can't go in for meetings. Now they're not too sure what their other clients are like. And everybody was just, and I was panicking. I was honestly panicking because here I have all these investors of the money that I have and putting into this thing that now I'm no longer sure it's going to work the way I thought it was going to work, or it's going to push me back 2 more years. And I needed it to happen now. I was trying to go for the specific window, you know. Yeah, especially considering that I was still in school too. So I had to really figure that out and just kind of adapt. And I think when it comes to growth, the most important thing is being adaptable, being ready to, like you said, jump when things change. You have to be able to do that, or else you're going to get stuck. And you have to know how to keep moving. You have to think fast.
Yeah, you do. But thank you so much, Jada, for your contribution on that question. What I'm thinking now is such the vast difference between Karishma and your circumstances with starting your businesses basically in the pandemic versus Mandisa. So Mandisa, you will have a different outlook. So I definitely want to hear your outtake on how exactly your plan worked in 2013, how you experienced growth and what you actually wish for your business currently in terms of expansion and adapting. Obviously, we'll get into that question after, but how did you adapt? So take it away.
Wow, you said when we started, and I feel like the world was different, completely different 7 years ago in 2013. Like, social media was not even a thing, and having a background, a marketing background in that time, you relied on so public relations, sponsorship, any of your above the advertising, radio. So definitely in the earlier days, since social media wasn't too much of a thing, not saying that it wasn't. I mean, we are online, we had our website set up and everything. And one of the things that I guess differentiated us from the competition is the level of professionalism that we brought. So everything was online back then. So you come in and we enter your system, and you could track to see if your repair was ready online, that sort of thing. So we tried to be innovative in a sense back in the days, and I guess that's what gave us the edge. It's what made us different from everybody else. But definitely growth was it. I mean, when you see your brand being received and you push, you just continue to be as big as you see it in your mind. So within our 3rd year, I believe it was, we opened our larger branch at the Gablewoods Mall. And then 2 years after that, we opened up the Foot Spa. When the pandemic came around, I remember the last day I sat in the spa and I almost had a nervous breakdown. It felt like every economics class I have ever taken, where you just felt like, oh my God, the food is going to run out. What are people going to do? I was having a nervous breakdown. So I eventually relaxed. And you get to a point where you have to make necessary decisions for your business. From the onset, I knew, it wasn't about risky business. You to survive the pandemic, you have to focus on your core. You have to, stay as debt-free as you possibly can. You need to watch your figures closely. If ever there was a time for you to manage your money, every little cent counted. So at that point, I felt like it was necessary to close down our store. And this is at a place where, we were ready to open our 3rd location on island and one outside of St. Lucia, which has always been a big thing for me. I mean, having something virtual is one thing, but to to set up something that's brick and mortar, it's a little, it can be a little challenging. So we felt like, okay, we were there, and then COVID happened. So it's like Karishma said, it's just how you manage. You don't be discouraged, but you use this downtime as a way to re-strategize. Chances are, when you've shaved off all the fat on your plan, you will realize that there are ways that you could do things differently and bring in more money. So, because at the end of the day, you need to turn over a profit. So, for me, it really is about being versatile and looking out at opportunities to stay afloat.
Yeah, and the fact that you mentioned being adaptable, obviously everybody has mentioned that in their current situation that we're in, that they have to be adaptable. So that brings us perfectly into our next question, which is, what are some of the roadblocks that this pandemic has created in your efforts to propel your growth of your business, and how did you overcome them? I know some of you touched on it a little bit, so you can just speak on it just for a few seconds. Mandisa, you're already here, so just go ahead and speak a little more about how you overcame, and what exactly did you use? What were your tools? What were some of the strategies that you had to overcome this pandemic? You closed down one of your businesses, but what else did you do?
I would add to that it's still surviving the pandemic. The harsh reality is that it's not going to go away. So many things have changed, and is still going to be a factor maybe 2-3 years from now. I think the biggest thing was that I had that decision, which I really thought would have been, and a lot of people stopped me and they were like, oh my gosh, you closed down the spa, you closed down the store, you must be. But I always say, you don't fall in love with the idea so much that it's hard for you to pull yourself away and make tough decisions, because that is just going to affect you in the long run. You have to learn, it's business. At the end of the day, if it means that, you have to refocus. And I like how Karishma said that, they started off with swimsuits, and now they're doing masks to keep up with the time. So I think it really, the trick for me is just staying very much in tune with what my costs are, what my profit margins are, knowing what we're good at, focusing on what we're good at, and looking out for any other opportunities that may come around.
Jada, you mentioned it a bit. Do you want to expand on how you've overcome some of the obstacles you had to set back a year? Speak a little more on that roadblock, and what other things that you did to adapt to this current state.
Okay, so for me, in terms of the pandemic specifically, I think it made me push back my in-person launch, in terms of what my idea was for that launch. It was initially me wanting to have a private launch, 100 people in one place, and then just launch it like that, and then we boost it through social media, etc. But that we would have a couple of people in person, and then it turns out, for the pandemic, they were like, okay, you can't have more than 25 people. So I was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna plan one of 25 people, and then live stream the rest. And then it got worse, and it came up that I couldn't do any launch at all. So the whole thing went on being an online live streamed launch. But then even that didn't necessarily make sense, because like Mandisa says, you really have to end up watching your costs. Now for me, just starting, especially let's say I didn't get my bottles till January, and this launch was supposed to happen since December. It came to a point where I quickly ordered a couple bottles to just have some on me during December, and I just kind of give away as promo bottles, but I couldn't necessarily sell any. I couldn't really say that I have this product available on the market yet, so it pushed back all of that. And then I ended up just focusing on doing visualizers because I had to realize that XONA, like I said, was not about putting another wine on the shelf. It was about selling lifestyle. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to do a launch for a product. I'm going to sell lifestyle throughout. So I ended up doing a lot of shorter clips of just lifestyle. So in terms of the COVID or the pandemic roadblocks, that's what that was. But I think for me, in terms of roadblocks generally, it was actually more the fact that I was well, one, my age, but also the fact that I came from a small island. Most suppliers, when they see you coming from such a small island, they would figure your demand is so small, you're not necessarily worth the investment. And it came to me really having to rally around and saying, yes, I can, yes, I can, yes, I can, yes, I'm worth it, I can sell this. That was the bigger part. It wasn't much the pandemic, but it was more just the fact of where I was coming from and the fact that they know the Caribbean is not necessarily a huge market for wine. So they're like, why should we even bother work with you? It came to a point where they wanted me to order way too much just because of the risk associated. They were like, nah, you have to be able to get at least 24,000, bottles or 48,000. And I'm just like, nah, that's too much. I'm just starting. I don't know how it's going to work yet. I need less than that. I had wineries pull out on me. I had vineyards pull out on me till I got to a point where I'm like, nah, you need to give me an option. You have to give me some option. And it came to a point where I decided to order in bulk in like these huge water tanks. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go to smaller companies and have it bottled by other companies. That's what it ended up coming to. But then the pandemic, a lot of these wineries lost their customers. So the same ones that did not want to bottle for me and supply at first, but were willing to do it in bulk, they were like, you know what? We'll bottle for you, because they realized maybe we should keep her and she's serious. I think they got to realize now she's ready, she's serious, she has the money to back it. We might as well just trust her. She seems to really be about what she's about. So in terms of my roadblocks and obstacles and then overcoming them, it definitely had more to do with where I was coming from and who I was versus it being a pandemic thing. But I think COVID came with its pros and cons for me. So yeah.
I definitely agree that definitely came with the pros and cons for your story, because I mean, had it not been, would you have gotten the supplies that you were seeking? So I mean, sometimes it works out. I'm not saying that this pandemic is a blessing, but Karishma, will you like to speak on some of the roadblocks that you faced and just let us know how you overcame them?
Yeah, sure. I think I touched on it a little bit before, but I just have to say, I really think that this is a conversation about resilience right now. And listening to Mandisa and listening to both the stories at this point with Jada and Mandisa, Jada said something very, very important about how people view the Caribbean and the products that come out of the Caribbean and trying to service islands. And I think I'm going to preach this till the day that I die. I think that we are stronger together than we are as individuals apart. And I'm actually speaking to the islands. So I think if we presented ourselves as one Caribbean nation, as opposed to, separate islands within the Caribbean, I think we're going to be stronger. And I think that was my mentality with speaking to wanting to branch regionally. I didn't want to just be seen as a Barbadian-based product in Barbados. So speaking now to a roadblock, a challenge that I had was, I was getting fabrics from Jamaica and from Trinidad, and I was stitching in Trinidad because the cost of production was significantly more cost effective. And obviously, you can't fly anymore. You literally cannot fly into Trinidad. Movement is so limited. And so that's a major roadblock. And trying to get the fabrics into Barbados, the duties are so high. So again, that's another challenge that a lot of other countries in the world don't face, and they don't face it in the way that we face it here in the Caribbean. And then Mandisa spoke about not being too attached to, the outcome and having kind of a fear with closing down a brick and mortar establishment. And that's another really good thing, because I'm not saying to not look at your business through rose-colored glasses. You always have to be optimistic about the outcome. But you do also have to have those rainy day cards in your back pocket about, what am I going to do when it goes sideways, right? And you don't necessarily cross that bridge until you get to it, but you do have to have that kind of a backup strategy of, now what? Like, where do I go? And I feel like if you have a certain level of enthusiasm about who you are, what you stand for, what you're trying to create, and just the overall bigger picture, you can't fail. Like, you can't be wrong at it because your mentality is in the right place. You know, it's like creating a dish and you don't have a recipe, but you know that you're putting amazing things into it. It's not going to come out poorly because they're delicious things that you're putting into it. So yeah, that's just my view on how to get over these situations and just how to be resilient, not only as a businesswoman, but also just as a person trying to navigate a pandemic.
I think you guys are definitely doing my job for me. I love the fact that you spoke on resilience, because it brings us straight into our question on sustainability, you know, especially sustaining ourselves during this pandemic. Mandisa, you are a little more seasoned than our two newcomers to the business. I do want you to speak on how it was when you launched your business. How did you maintain that momentum of a successful launch? Even our girls, Jada and Karishma, I still want you to speak on how you plan on maintaining and keeping those wheels turning, because you've both had successful launches of your business. So Mandisa, take it away with that question. How have you maintained that momentum? Because you've done well so far. I want to know how you did it.
I think for me, it was a lot of just remaining in the public's eye, trying to stay top of mind as much as I possibly could have. In the earlier stages, you know, we definitely did a lot of giving back. I think one thing that really pushed us out there was our corporate social responsibility drive that we started early in the game, and it really was not for the publicity. I mean, what we basically used to do was, around school times, we felt that it was an opportunity to collect school shoes for from children who are going on to a later grade, because most times children don't wear their shoes out to the ground. So we would restore them and then donate it. And that kind of really got big. We partnered with the Sandals Foundation, who donated backpacks and, you know, notebooks and that sort of thing to add to what we were doing. But that was just one of the things. Eventually social media became a thing, so we would reach out to our customers that way. So I think for us, sustainability was basically just top of mind. Some people say we're a household name. I don't know. I think we can do a little bit more. But yeah, it really was about achieving that and just kept it going. We eventually added our other location, and then the foot spa, which you know, added a variety to the brand, which definitely helped to keep us in the forefront of persons' minds. So I think it's just a lot of drive and you know, servicing our customers. I mean, it's not just my efforts. I have had an amazing team without me, and I mean, kudos, because they are, you know, without them, there's no business. They're the heart, and that's where real talent is. So yeah, I think it's really to just keep pushing and keeping your name out there as much as possible.
Before I tag in the other girls, do you have any advice for them on how they can sustain the momentum of their business, of their launch?
These girls have their heads on them. So you girls seem very seasoned. I think I'm not sure what more I could add to what they're doing, except what I touched on earlier, is that you don't want to forget yourself in the process. And that's something that I preach to a lot of persons who are going into business. In the earlier days, I like I'm a Capricorn and I just go hard. So lose sleep, anything, it took long hours, and then at some point you become drained. It's not that you're not seeing your business growing. You will see it. You put the effort in, you will see it. But then you also want to remain grounded. You want to focus on you as a person, not to forget your personal goals, the business goals, but then there's also the personal goals. So I think my bit of advice is to remember yourself outside of your business.
Girls, Karishma, will you like to speak a little bit about how you plan on sustaining the momentum after you picked up with the masks? How do you plan on sustaining that sort of traction that you currently have going on, whether it's organic or it's intentional? How you plan on sustaining it?
So we realized that masks are truthfully not going anywhere. And as you can notice probably from the background, I'm not in Barbados currently. I'm in the States right now. And so obviously I've been seeing some trends here, and what happens in North America catches in the Caribbean couple months down the road. So I've already seen some quite interesting things that I want to prototype on my own and to test out. But before I even got here, towards the end of last year, the end of last year and the beginning of this year, I have started sketching some other ideas that I've had in mind. And I think being in business where you're creating is a very interesting space to be in, because you don't really box yourself into any one thing. I mean, obviously in wines, you can innovate, different flavor palettes that you want to work on, Jada, for example. So with me, I think an incredible thing that happened was that it kind of took a boundary off of the way that I was thinking about my own business. Like, I would have never even thought that masks could have been a reality, or something that people would have wanted to wear. So again, just, staying open-minded about opportunities. I've been sketching a lot, so I have a couple of tricks up my sleeve for when lockdown eventually ends and life gets into the new normal, whatever that might be. Fashion ain't going nowhere, girlfriend. It's not going anywhere. So I think I'll be okay in that sense. And with regards to, caring for myself and caring for my business, I do try to very intentionally keep the brand alive and keep the buzz around the brand alive, and just keep teasing people's palates, so to speak, when it comes to not necessarily where they are, but where they envision themselves, like where they aspire to be, or the kinds of things that they want to wear and the kinds of things that they want to see. Jada spoke about lifestyle, and that's a very important point, because oftentimes when people support a brand, they are supporting a story. They want to feel like they're part of that person's story. They're part of that journey. They fit into that puzzle. And so it's really just about understanding that and speaking to that. And for myself personally, I just ensure that, as Mandisa said, I ensure that I take downtime. I found a lot of comfort in exercising, and it's not just physical comfort, it's mental comfort as well. It instantly transmutes my energy in a very physical, tangible way, which I think is great. So sustainability to your business, as Mandisa said, comes from sustainability first to yourself. Like, you have to care for yourself. And so you need to just keep doing what's right for you, even if it's just, taking some downtime to read a book or doing a face mask before you go to bed. There's such little things that have such amazing repercussions on your level of productivity.
Thank you so much, Karishma. Jada, you are the final person to answer this question. I do want to know, what have you taken from Mandisa? What have you taken for Karishma? What do you have planned for your own self? How do you plan on keeping that momentum going? How do you plan on keeping those wheels turning for your business? Let us know.
Yeah, for sure. So from both Mandisa and Karishma, I think what really stood out to me was just the focus on self-care. Like she said, you have to take care of your mental before you can put anything into a business. It'll affect your productivity regardless. So just like Karishma said, in terms of exercising, I think for me, in terms of meditations, as well as having human moments, I like to call them, when I kind of take a pause before I respond or react to anything, or sometimes I just go outside, whether it's a half hour, whether it's 15 minutes, and just kind of be silent. I need to give myself that time, because when you go into business, especially when you're multitasking, there's so much that happens in a day, so much that happens in a minute. You have to be able to give yourself time to really process what's going on, figure out how you want to respond, and then respond accordingly. So that's just on the personal level. However, in terms of business and in terms of like how I plan on remaining, relevant, how do I see, what am I working towards sustainability? One would be taking advantage of social media, especially now. COVID is somewhat, I would like to think, on its way out considering the vaccines, but social media continues to be a very vibrant platform for avenue to really sell your business now more than ever, especially in terms of how you manipulate the different platforms, how you react, how you would respond or sell yourself on Instagram is very different from how you are on Twitter. On Twitter, I'm a lot more interactive, and I will respond to certain things, or I find some way to reply to something, or I give a lot of cheeky responses or whatnot, versus Instagram, you give that nice, clean cut, perfect image and type of approach to your customers. So that's one. Other than that, I've also been working on a lot of partnerships. So I've worked with quick delivery. Delivery is very important during this period of time. So if everybody can't, be in person and come to your store, or come to your office, or do whatever you need to do that way, having the deliveries and grab and go services set up definitely keeps you going during this time. So I've partnered with quick delivery. I've partnered with a couple of restaurants in terms of organizing, food pairings and wine pairings, and how is that going to work out, as well as other artists, like Karishma said as well. Being a creative in a business, it's very interesting. And I think for me, I've been involved in like performing arts and art in general, in terms of creating and sculpting, painting, you name it. And even for me with my brand, I try to see how, even for other artists, how do I bring them into this? Because like, again, it's not just wine, but it's lifestyle, and it's also Caribbean culture. So you need to be as involved and within the lifestyle. As much as you're creating lifestyle, you have to also be in the current lifestyle, kind of finding that bridge between the two, between where I am and where everybody else is. Also, having to set up online orders on your websites, especially. So again, to limit that face-to-face interaction, but you just also create convenience in terms of how you get your product out there, how you keep your product out there, and making it as easy as possible, especially because, again, in the Caribbean, I would say we're not as technologically advanced as the States or Canada or Europe. And that is something that you have to also, when even creating a website, you have to be very careful with how exactly you go about doing that. And then finally, also the fact that I plan on shifting into a lot more outdoor events. Again, it's lifestyle. I don't plan on keeping everything through just selling image on social media, but even creating that aesthetic, creating that atmosphere. So some of our national events like jazz or carnivals, I plan on being a part of that, as well as even hosting my own events for XONA, where we either create very moody acoustic sounds, wine tastings, etc., brunch events and whatnot, just to really create that vibe. So yeah, in terms of sustainability, that is the plan and that has been the plan. And it's just to see how it works out, until you really start doing it and you see how people react to it. It's like I said in the beginning, in terms of being adaptable, you have to be ready to switch up. If this doesn't work, what's plan B? So yeah,
it's all about adaptability right now. I think if
right.
there are two words that come out of 2020 or this pandemic, it is resilience and adaptability. Thank you, everybody. I do want to end the night off by thanking our sponsors, by thanking everybody. So before we head off, I do want to thank and highlight our gold sponsor of this event, the St. Lucia Development Bank, as well as Invest St. Lucia. Thank you so much to our audience for participating. You were so wonderful, and thank you for sticking around to the end. Last but certainly not least, thank you so much, Mandisa of Shoe Rehab, Jada Francis of XONA Wines, Karishma of PANACHE Islandwear. Thank you so much for taking your time out this evening to bestow your knowledge and your advice and taking us through your journey. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am going to head off. Thank you, everybody. And anybody wants to end with anything, say anything before we leave?
Yes, just a quick thank you to everyone who came in and who participated. And of course, thank you so much to Boost. This is such an inspiring platform, and it actually really is a connection channel, isn't it? So that everyone, you can meet other people in business that you could create a symbiotic relationship with. So thank you very much. This was an incredible way to spend an evening, and I hope you've taken away something that's going to motivate you further down the road.
Yeah,
thank you, everyone.
I definitely want to thank everyone, for the support, for showing out, and also to Boost, even for having me on this panel as well. I think usually when we have business persons, you don't always see younger persons, not necessarily my age group or younger. So having me as one of those panelists, I think it will speak a lot to other people in my age group. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity for that.
Thank you, everybody.
We're in the same age group.
Mandisa.
I don't know about you.
Tell her, girl. You tell her.
Age group, I just want to say, you girls were great. Very inspiring, very encouraging. I hope everyone took something away from this. Thank you, Boost, and to our lovely hostess with the most. Thank you so much. You did a great job.
Round of applause.
Thank you, ladies. All right, I'm going to sign out now. And the prize winners, please give your information to us on our Instagram. Please shout out everybody's Instagram. Karishma, Mandisa, Jada. Karishma, go ahead. What's your socials?
Oh, PANACHE Islandwear. Easy. PANACHE Islandwear on Instagram and on Facebook.
Mandisa, socials.
Okay, it's REHAB _758, and you could check us out at the JQ.
Oh no, it might have cut her off. She left. But check out True Rehab on Instagram, everybody. Jada, let us know your socials.
So it's XONA Wines everywhere. So XONA Wines on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we also have our office on Lower Mon Road. That's right by Western Union. Just before you head up the Mon, you'll see the sign. That's where our office is as well. And you can make your orders online at www.zonawines.com.
And you can follow Invest St. Lucia, which is one of our sponsors, as well as Boost St. Lucia. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Night.